it is necessary to get into some of these marquee free agents. 2023 NBA free agent class isn't a particularly strong one in some people's eyes, but there are some names that obviously are going to have a lot of impact, and there's no way to avoid getting into it. When we think about the money that's available and what have you, you got to get into some of these guys. James Harden comes to mind. Now, James Harden has been an interesting story because James Harden is one of those dudes that, hey, he's a perennial all-star. He led the league in assists this past season, 10.7 a game. Helped the Philadelphia 76ers get to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals before they got blown out by Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Boston Celtics at TD Bank Garden in Boston. Okay, they had a 3-2 lead, couldn't close out the series in Philadelphia, and then obviously a Game 7 had to go back to Boston, and they got smoked. No doubt about it, no way around it. And James Harden took a lot of hits because he was a no-show. Plain and simple. You had guys like my colleagues Kendrick Perkins and others saying he flat out quit. These are the kind of things you've heard about him in the past. I don't believe that was the case in most instances, but I will tell you, Game 7, he looked like a deer in headlights. It was very, very, very bad. And when you saw that Doc Rivers ultimately got fired as the head coach, you kind of wondered whether or not James Harden played that way on purpose just so Doc Rivers could be gone. Probably hoping his man Mike D'Antoni, his former coach with the Houston Rockets, was going to get the job, but that didn't end up happening. It ended up being Nick Nurse, formerly of the Toronto Raptors, because obviously he got them to a championship when Kawhi Leonard was his star player. And Nick Nurse is now the new head coach in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the Philadelphia 76ers, and who knows how he's going to utilize James Harden. From what I'm told, Nick Nurse spent some time in Houston recently, desperately wanting James Harden to return to being a Philadelphia 76er. James Harden, according to numerous reports, doesn't want to be in Philadelphia, wants out of Philadelphia, would like to go back to Houston, okay, where he starred for about 9 seasons, winning a few scoring titles and a league MVP honor. By the way, he got my vote that year. He won league MVP, if I remember correctly. Him and Russell Westbrook switched years or whatever, but I've always been a fan of James Harden. Let me say this. James Harden is not the player he used to be. Now, he's not a scrub. He's still an all-star caliber player. He still can ball, but he is not the superstar offensive juggernaut he used to be. Because when you got to run the show and you got to be a distributor and you got to be a play setter, as opposed to somebody looking to score all the damn time, it's very, very difficult for you to record the same numbers you used to recall. And nevertheless, some people would argue that it hurt James' stock. To me, you know what's hurting James Harden's stock more than anything? Your willingness to go back to Houston. Because you know they're not a title contender. You know that they're a young squad. You know that they don't need you. You just want your own comfort zone. You want the helicopters. You want to be able to take off when you want to. You want to play in a system where they don't get to show you negative plays and all of that other stuff, even though Ime Udoka ain't going to go for that. Tillman Fertitta and the Fertitta family running the show in Houston, they wouldn't mind having James Harden back, and I'm so sick and tired of all of this speculation. Why is that? Why would he be interested in going back to Houston? Why would they be interested in having him? It's very, very simple. James Harden is a pillar of H-Town. They love him there. They appreciate him there and the years of greatness that he gave them at the Toyota Center, no doubt. Okay? Got them to within one game of an NBA Finals when Chris Paul was there with them, and P.J. Tucker and Clint Capella and those boys. And Trevor Ariza, let's not forget him. But the point is that was a long time ago. And James Harden was there. And what happened is when he wanted out after Daryl Morey walked out the door, when James Harden wanted out, Tillman Fertitta, there was no way in hell they were going to let him go and just join Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. They weren't going to have that. So he got out of shape and was avoiding the team and all of this other stuff. And they ultimately agreed to move him. But they moved him to Brooklyn, not Philadelphia. And he didn't mind because he joined KD and Kyrie, and they were supposed to compete for titles. James Harden showed up or wasn't 100% healthy but tried. It was a courageous effort he tried to give Kevin Durant in that Milwaukee series. He just wasn't healthy. That's the bottom line. Kyrie Irving had twisted his ankle. In my opinion, had he not twisted his ankle, Brooklyn beats Milwaukee. And Brooklyn with Harden and KD, okay, and Kyrie, win the championship that year. I truly believe that. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen, okay? And from that point forward, Harden ultimately would end up forcing his way out of Brooklyn. And because he forced his way out of Houston, and because he forced his way out of Brooklyn, and he had that bad look, and now this loss to that got Doc Rivers fired, his reputation is not great. It just isn't. Now, I'm not going to hold all of that stuff against them. Stuff happens in the world of business. But in the end, those are things on your docket. And what it comes down to is this. Why the hell should Houston want them? They're not going anywhere. If you can't help Embiid win the championship with Tyrese Maxey, what the hell are you going to do with Kenyon Martin Jr. and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. and Kevin Porter and these boys? You ain't going to do anything with that young squad. They got a young squad that they're uplifting, and they're not interested in bringing somebody on board like a James Harden who's going to be ball dominant, even though he can play an exceptional point guard when he wants to be. They're just not going to do it. Not at the 4-year max dollars that he wants. And so as a result, Daryl Morey, of course, would love to give him that money in Philadelphia. But Josh Harris, the ownership group in Philadelphia, ain't necessarily too keen on it. So we got to wonder what's going to happen with James Harden. It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. He's looking for big-time dollars. He's earned over $272 million in his career, $33 million last season, averaged 21 points, 10.7 assists, 44% shooting, 38.5% from three-point range. We know what he brings to the table. But that ain't the answer. I say you keep him in Philadelphia, but at a cheaper price, because he doesn't have too many options, and he shouldn't have too many options. We'll wait and see if Chicago gets into the mix or somebody else, but I sincerely doubt it. Second on the list, free agencies, is Kyrie Irving. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most shocking things for me to say, Kyrie Irving actually has leverage. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, what you going to do? It wasn't Kyrie's fault that things didn't work out in Dallas this past season. Y'all didn't even make the play-in game. That wasn't his fault. Kyrie Irving did what he was supposed to do. He came to Dallas. He averaged 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 49% shooting from the field, 37.9% from three-point range. Kyrie Irving did his job. He's no defensive stalwart. What the hell you give away both Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith for? By the way, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, what the hell were you doing losing Jalen Brunson in free agency? Had you not lost him in free agency in last summer, you wouldn't have needed Kyrie Irving, because that Jalen Brunson was balling. He balled for you in the playoffs. He balled with and without Luka Doncic. And you still let him go when you had an opportunity to get him for $50+ million. The New York Knicks gave him 103, and we all sitting here a year later talking about how underpaid he is. So that's the Dallas Mavericks that made that mistake. Having said all of that, I will say this. They need a lot of help. It's a big-time deal that they drafted this kid, Derek Lively, out of Duke, because he defends and he blocks shots. He's a rim protector. God, they need it. We haven't seen the Dallas Mavericks play defense since February. So they need all the help that they can get. Now, what Kyrie Irving is going to do remains to be seen. This is a brother right here that obviously has had his share of troubles, making news for all the wrong reasons. Don't get me started with it. The pandemic, the vaccine, the tweeting, the retweeting of a movie with anti-Semitic tropes that got him in trouble with the Jewish community, and ultimately the NBA. All of this stuff, we know what time it is. We get it. He went to Boston, departed from there after saying he'd stay if you all would have me to the crowd. He left like a thief in the night. That was after leaving LeBron in Cleveland. So he's got a quote-unquote checkered past. There is no doubt about that. There is no escape from that. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's hard to defend anything about Kyrie Irving in that regard. But the brother is a superstar talent. There is no doubt about that. He has shown up. There is no doubt about that offensively, although there are some limitations defensively. We get all of that. But it ain't his fault. And I think the time has arrived to look at it differently. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, what choices do you have? You don't have any cap space. You're not in a position where you can make but so many moves when it comes to Kyrie Irving. You got to figure out something. And I don't know if you can. I'm just looking at numbers here. It's impossible to decipher games missed due to injury or load management, etc. But over his 12-year career, this is Kyrie Irving, he's missed 291 of 962 potential games. That's 30% of his games due to injury, load management, suspension, or drama-related issues. And we both know there's many. In the 6 seasons since requesting a trade out of Cleveland, he's missed 38% of his games. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. But the brother is still a star caliber talent player. He just is. And more importantly, if you let him walk out the door and you don't get equitable compensation in return for his services, how pleasing is that going to be to Luka Doncic? And if Luka Doncic ain't pleased, where's that going to get you? We got to remember all of this stuff. This stuff matters. And so you're the Dallas Mavericks. You got to figure that out. Kyrie Irving is actually in a position to get his money because I don't know how much of a choice the Dallas Mavericks have. Now, the problem is once you give him his money, you empower him to act the way that he wants to act. But the one thing I do know is that he's going to show up come playoff time. He ain't going to fold beneath the pressure, I tell you that. Kristaps Porzingis was supposed to be a free agent, but the Boston Celtics traded for him. And that makes them, as far as I'm concerned, the odds-on favorite to win the chip because when you pair him with Al Horford, Robert Williams III, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, I don't like the fact that Boston lost Marcus Smart, but I love the fact that they got Porzingis, a rim protector who can shoot threes. Last year, he shot 34.2% from three-point range, 7'3". He can do it. Give credit where credit is due. A lot of people want me to look at Fred VanVleet. A lot of teams should want this brother. 19 points per game. 34% from three-point range, he's better than that. 39% from the field, he's better than that. You can't sit up there and ask him to be a number one option, but if you're asking him to be a reserve on a court with another star that can do some things, Fred VanVleet can make pressure shots for you. He's a champion, by the way. Confident floor general, can get buckets for you from all over the floor, creates for his teammates, a hard-nosed defender, gives a lot of effort. I just can't knock it. Chris Middleton's another one. Now, I don't think he's been the same since his injury, and I think that has a lot to do with the lack of success Milwaukee has enjoyed. Fair enough. But he can still ball. I think he opted out because he was in a position, okay, to make about $40 million, made about $37 million last season. He was in a position to make more, opted out. Another person is Draymond Green. There's nothing to talk about here. Draymond Green is staying in Golden State. Nice try, Memphis. I know you were behind the scenes trying to get him. But Draymond Green is staying in Golden State. And let me tell you why it's a great, great move. I can't believe how people miss this. Steph Curry. You have to protect Steph Curry. You can't just leave Steph Curry out there hanging. You can't just leave him to be the one to make noise in the locker room when dudes ain't doing their jobs. And you damn sure can't leave him on the court playing with people that don't know how to get him the ball in his spots, on the move, in groove, in motion, in rhythm. Nobody does that better than Draymond Green. Now, I know people are looking at it and they're disgusted with Draymond Green because you do have some people, even some people associated with the Golden State Warriors, that believe he ruined this season last year because he couldn't be the leader that he wanted to be because he punched Jordan Poole in the face, knocked him out, basically caught him while he was falling to the ground. And from the moment he did that, Jordan Poole never got over it. And by the way, can you blame him? I remember an executive said to me, Stephen A., get on Jordan Poole all you want to. And this changed, I'm prefacing it by saying this changed my mentality about Jordan Poole. He said, Stephen A., get on Jordan Poole all you want to. If somebody punched you in your face and knocked you the fuck out, and it happened to be your teammate, would you be okay with that? Could you be their friend after that? Could you just get over that and shake it off and be like, he said, Stephen, even if you were wrong, you wouldn't forgive him because you'd be embarrassed by the fact that you got knocked out. That's what he said. And so I remembered that. I held on to that. Made perfect sense. Because Jordan Poole and Draymond Green wasn't going to be able to exist. It's not really because of Draymond. Because I can tell you as somebody who knows Draymond and somebody who's spoken to him privately as well as on this podcast, he felt guilty instantly. He felt like 2 inches tall. He couldn't believe what he had done. And there were plenty of times when he tried to talk to Jordan Poole when there was something he needed to do on the basketball court or whatever, and you'd see Jordan Poole walk right by him and just ignore him. And one time I saw him walk right by Draymond when Draymond tried to talk to him, and Steph Curry followed him to the bench and got on him and was talking to him. The moment Draymond Green did that to him, he couldn't be a Golden State Warrior again. He was never the same. He had a bad season, Jordan Poole, because he was somebody that was still trying to overcome what transpired. Draymond doesn't regret much. As somebody who respects the hell out of him and spoke to him about it, he regrets that more than almost anything he's ever regretted in his life. He knows that was extreme. But in the end, you're Golden State. You can't lose Draymond because of it. Jordan Poole could score a year, and he's going to go to Washington, the nation's capital, average over 20 a game. He's going to be a number one option. He ain't Steph Curry. He ain't Klay Thompson. And he damn sure ain't the defensive ace and a vocal leader that Draymond Green is. If you got to choose between the two, you choose him. Which explains why he was sent to Washington and CP3 was brought here. Now, I don't like the CP3 fit. But I do love the fact that Golden State's going to shave a whole bunch of money off their books come next season. Over $350 million they're going to shave off their books. When you consider they're in the luxury tax and the money they're going to have to pay and the money they're going to end up saving. That is a beautiful thing. I just don't think what they have in terms of CP3 is a fit, nor is it going to deliver them championships. I hope they're going to make some moves because the roster they have is presently assembled ain't going to be good enough to win no damn championship. They're going to need more than that. But it starts by keeping Dre. And next summer, Klay, assuming Klay makes amends for his poor performance in the Western Conference semifinals against the Los Angeles Lakers, which I believe he will. So all of those things are things to consider. You got other free agents like Jeremy Grant in Portland, Vucevic in Chicago, Lopez in Milwaukee, who had a pretty good season. Kyle Kuzma is going to be a free agent as well. He averaged 21 and 7 this past season. He's worth more than $13 million. I don't blame him opting out. I don't blame him for opting out. He's worth more than $13 million. You got all of that stuff. Yoka Portal from Toronto, D'Angelo Russell, don't get me started with him. You're the Los Angeles Lakers. You got to keep Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. You got to keep them. There's nothing to talk about. You just nothing to talk about. Sacramento would be nice to keep Harrison Barnes. All right? Even though I like Keegan Murray a lot, and I wonder what their future is going to be like together, if not apart. Denver already said they're keeping Bruce Brown. We heard Mike Malone speak about that, and I believe Russell Westbrook should stay with the Clippers. I think Russell Westbrook is exactly what they need. His brother's a fire breather. He's obviously in shape. He goes after it. And on top of it all, what has Russell Westbrook done? He's been available when nobody else has. Kawhi Leonard is Mr. Infirmary. He's always hurt. And Paul George has been hurt a lot too. You need somebody that's going to be in that lineup on a night in, night out basis. That's Russell Westbrook. That's Russell Westbrook.